welcome to Real Talk. I'm Denise Eaddy-Richardson, and this is my co-host, Eklund Anderson.
Hello there.
Here on Real Talk, we focus on family, health, community, restoration, and church, giving real solutions from the Word for very real problems. It is an amazing day to be alive, and we are about to have an amazing time with Nate Frazier. He is a champion in the community and a founder and CEO of the Black Men's Mental Health and Wellness Resource. Welcome to Real Talk. Hey, Nate.
How are you both?
Hello.
It's good to have you here today.
I'm honored.
We've got a lot to dive into, so let's get to it. Let's talk about your early childhood.
Early childhood, I grew up in the city of Ann Arbor. They call it the Old West Side. Now they call it Water Hill. And so growing up in Ann Arbor with 10 siblings,
10.
a mother and a father in the house. And so, which was my stepfather. So it was pretty good, but you know, a lot of things happen, and you growing up, it was very family oriented. My mom did the best that she could do. But then there was a lot of things in life that you experience and go through in life as a child that you don't want to experience, but you know, end up experiencing things in life. And so my childhood was good, but then it wasn't so good. I was a mama's boy. I just, you know, stay under my mother a lot. But I did have to endure a lot of things, you know, that happened growing up and stuff like that. But, you know, as I got older.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about your stepfather and his background from the military?
Yes, my stepfather was in Vietnam War, and so he suffered a lot of trauma, which I didn't understand as a child what trauma was back then. But he suffered a lot of trauma, so by being in the Vietnam War, he had to kill little babies and to save his life and things like that. So I didn't know, but when my mom got with him, you know, he was a professional singer. And so they end up years later getting married, and he had a very serious drinking problem. So he was abusive to my mom. He was abusive to us growing up, you know, as a child. Not sexually, but verbally and physically. He would always, I remember as a little kid him watching big time wrestling, you know, and you might know back then all those wrestlers, Dick the Bruiser, Bo Lazio and all that. So he would put us in those choke holes and put bottle caps on his thumbs and jab us in the throat and grab us around the neck until we pass out. And so he did a lot of abusive things to us physically and mentally. He was with my mom, but you know, as we got older, we realized he really didn't care about us. So that took a toll on a lot of them, but we all got our own different personalities. And so he really didn't like me because me and my mom was so close. And he didn't like that, you know, because I knew a lot of things that went on between my mom and my stepfather that my other brothers and sisters didn't know. And so he really didn't like me, so he took a lot of things out on me, you know, far as abusive and mental abuse.
Okay, so with regard to your interactions with your stepfather, your home was not a safe place for you.
With him, no. You know, it definitely wasn't a safe place. You know, when it was just me and my mom and the kids before she met him, it was very safe.
How old were you when she met him and
5.
he became a part of your life?
6.
Okay. And so was he there all through your basic childhood and adolescence?
Yes, he was there up until my mom passed away in 2002.
Okay.
And they met in 74.
When did you start your faith walk?
As a child. How did
that come about?
Just supernaturally. It was just in me. As a little, I remember 6, 7 years old, when nobody in my church believed in God. They believed in God, but they didn't attend service. I wanted to go to church. I used to be on the corner of Fountain and Miller, and I was preaching, you know, mocking the preacher, and I'm hooping and hollering, and, you know, got my little cup, you know, wanting to take some offering, you know, and so I was mocking the preacher. It was always in me. It was always in me.
So how did that help you cope with the lack of security that you had in your home?
I just believe that God just always had his hands on me. And he kept me when I couldn't keep myself. And he brought me through things that could have killed me, could have took me out, could have destroyed me. But he kept me even in the midst of that abuse and even in the midst of watching it. You know, because there's many times that, trust me, as I got older, you know, when we was young, me and my sister would think about, you know, giving them rat poison. We was coming up with all type of things because he was just that abusive. You know, but back then, what goes on in your house stays in your house.
Right.
So you couldn't say nothing. So there are times I go to school with a whip on my face, and it'd be like, well, you know, I failed. And back then, teachers and things, weren't as in depth as they is now.
Yeah, they weren't inquiring as much.
Correct.
Okay. So your faith in God took you through the tough times.
Yes.
You started ministering.
Yes.
On the corner.
Yes.
On Fountain Street in Miller.
Fountain Street,
Okay.
Miller.
One of my favorite pastors lived on Fountain Street. You were ordained.
Yes, I was ordained. I started preaching in 1985 is when I accepted my call. And this is something, because when I was in high school, they did this computer check. Let you know what you're going to be when you grow up. You know, me and my kind of silly self back in the day, being goofy. It came up clergyman. So I was like, teacher, what is a clergyman? You know? And she was like, a minister. I was like, what? You know, even though I loved it and I loved going to church, it came up that. And
That's
so
interesting.
when I knew I had my calling was at 11 years old, 612 Hiscott. I was on the porch, broad daylight, like hot summer, and my mom had this big sofa out on the porch, because those porches were big back then. I laid there, and I just had a outer spirit. I had a supernatural. It was kind of like it wasn't out of body, but you know how the picture that we used to see as kids, Jesus, you know, this white, blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus. Well, that one, right. But that's the one I saw. Okay, but he was in a cloud in the sky, and I never forget it. I was like up out of my body, looking up, and he was looking down on me, and these white clouds were around him, and he looked, and he said, "Go ye therefore," Matthew 28:18. He sure did. He said, "Go ye therefore and preach my word throughout the world, from the hedges and the byways, go all over." And from that day forward, it was like an anointing was just on me.
Wow.
And so, you know, through my good, through my ups, through my downs, through my backsliding, through my just growing up, experiencing life, that was always in me to do.
Okay, so let's examine this. Did you ever try to throw the anointing off? Try to avoid the anointing?
I would say yeah, because there were times that I knew it was my call, but I wanted to do me.
How did that work out for you?
It did not work. It did not work because I would always find myself, every time I wanted to go out and fulfill my flesh, I would find myself coming back to, you know, my first love, which is, you know, my
The
God.
love.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. What about your first church? How did that come
The first church I remember, because I started preaching in 1985. I got ordained in 1989. A little bit after that, I ended up starting a church. But let me say this, okay? Because a lot of times, because you have this gift, because back in the day, and still, I mean, I have a gift to deliver. And so a lot of times you get caught up in what people say, not what God said. And so I got caught up with people telling me at 18, 19, you bad, you can preach, you can do this, you can do that. You need to start you a church. Mm. So I listened to that. I never prayed about it. I had to realize that years on down the line, you got to go back and reevaluate stuff and see why it ain't working. Because if it ain't God, except God build the house, it shall not stand. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I started ministry on emotions and feelings and not really hearing the voice of God telling me to do that. When God told me to go and spread his word, he never told me to go behind a pulpit and start a church and start a congregation. He never told me that. I did that on Nate Frazier. I did that based on what the popularity of what people were saying. It was a popular opinion of people. You can, man, you have 2,000, you have this, you have that. You can get paid, you better go on. So it was a lot of different things when you're young, and then I didn't have the best, and I ain't putting nobody down, but I did not have the best upbringing in ministry. The pastor, I don't never name nobody's name, but some of the pastors I was under, you would be surprised what goes on behind religious doors, and pastors sitting down, and I'm a young man among a bunch of young pastors, so I got exposed to a lot of things that I shouldn't have got exposed to. So when you're very, very religious, you think it's okay. So I was religious. I didn't understand what real holiness was.
Religion versus the kingdom.
Come on.
It's a different thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Very different thing.
Yes.
So when did you get the revelation that, look, I didn't call you to establish a church?
The last ministry that I started, 2023? I think it was probably about 6 years ago. I started a ministry, God's Grace Ministry. And I said, okay, and that was the third ministry that I had started. First one was called True Faithful Gospel. The second one was Emmanuel Temple of Deliverance. This one was God's Grace Ministry, and they all failed. Okay, start off good, but that's how Satan, he'll bring you on in there. And so that's when I realized, when this minute, I was like, I went and I really began to seek God. I really began to seek him. And like, Lord, if this ain't you, reveal it to me. And he revealed it to me that, no, he has caused me to go out and to evangelize, not start evangelize. So that's when I realized that, because I thought pastor was my purpose. I really did. I really strongly thought that being a pastor was my purpose, but that was not my purpose.
You thought it so strongly that you didn't check?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, it's good to know, because people think that a faith walk is linear. That we walk by faith and not by sight, and we just go straight forward.
Keep on.
But we are human. God knows that there will be deviations. He does not prove them.
Right.
But he's always welcoming us back to our path.
Yes.
And it's important for people to know that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to try every day to be God-led. Okay. Talk to me about the youth of the black community.
Wow. The youth of the black community right now, what I see from my era is, I would say, not all of them, but it's a lot of youth of the black community out here is wild out, and what I mean by that, they're hurting. And
thank you for putting that in a context.
yes,
That our children are hurting,
yeah,
and it causes them to act out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it does. They're hurting. We got the stigma on us that we gotta be a certain way, we gotta have a certain swag. We gotta feel like we have to get respect. We gotta talk a certain way, walk a certain way, or be down for this or be down for that in order to be, you know, considered as a real young black man. And so the stigma is hurting our young children today. And when you look at what's going on with them, and I say this to a lot of people, a lot of young black men are not incarcerated because that's who they are. A lot of them, we always talk about the effect, but we never talk about the cause. Why?
Right, the why.
Who want to get up and go to prison?
Yeah.
Who wakes up in the morning and say, I want to go
Today
shoot
is the
my
day.
brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Mhm.
today is the day. They're hurting, they're crying out, and the stigma has been put on us from generation to generation. If you are a young man or a man, you don't cry, you suck it up, you deal with it, and you keep it moving. You don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, when you don't have an outlet, and you feel like you can't go and talk to people, you can't trust anybody, what you gonna do? All that stuff is bothered all up and down in you. So these kids, it's not that they're bad, it's just that they're hurting.
Yes.
So where does the healing begin? How can we see what's going on? But if we too busy always talking about the effect, and so quick to put people in prison, or so quick to put black men here and there and say they're all this way, how do you heal?
That's an excellent question. And when you talk about cultural trauma that our kids are subjected to daily, the microaggressions of racism,
Yes.
and then the aggression that is not micro,
Mm-hmm.
the poverty that so many of our children experience, the negative things that happen in many of their homes based on the poverty, the systemic barriers that our children encounter. When we think about culture and we think about trauma from generation to generation that our children suffer, you wonder really, how do they do as well as they do?
Right.
That is so true.
And I think one of the reasons is because they have someone like you in the community.
You know, I try my best to, my heart is for the young black man. It really is, because I understand what it is to be a black man in America.
Mm-hmm.
When I wake up, we already know the black man, whether you're a black boy or a black grown man, is one of the most despised human beings on the face of this earth. Just being black, you're looked at as in a man, you're already looked at as a criminal. And so to deal with that, you can have the best education, you can graduate from Harvard,
Mm-hmm.
you can have all of this going on for you, but because you're black, you still don't get that necessary respect as someone else would get. So I feel that there's a need for us to get with a lot of these young black kids out here and to let them know that, hey, you can talk to me. You can air it out. It's okay to cry. You know, I put on my Black Man Wellness page that, and mental health page, that tears are just an expression of the pain that you feel.
And tears are God-given.
Yes.
Then they're purposeful, like God has done everything for purpose and reason.
Yes.
And tears help let out the stress that
Yes.
you feel,
Mm-hmm.
instead of having it build up. And to your point that, you know, you can be black and you can go to Harvard and you can have all the right credentials on paper. You can even be president.
Come on.
And you will not be respected to the degree that you would be had you been born with a different skin pigmentation.
And that is so true.
And that has been borne out time after time after time. The brotherhood.
Yes. The brotherhood, I started with a guy that I was mentoring. He was 24 years old at the time. And so he was a guy that I met at the University of Michigan, and it was just strange because I didn't get it, because he came up to me, you know, and he was like, you know, you're my mentor. You know, I'm like, bro, I didn't know him from a can of paint. But I said, okay, you know, we talked, but we got to, you know each other. And so we end up becoming very, very, you know, close. I became his mentor. And he brought it to my attention. He said, you know what? You know, they call me OG. He said, you know what? OG, let's start a mentor. He said, let's start the brotherhood. I said, oh, okay. So we started the brotherhood. I don't mentor him anymore, but we started the brotherhood. So the brotherhood, it is incorporated with the Black Man Wellness and Mental Health Resource Center. That's all incorporated in one. Because in that resource center, I'm going to have so many different, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm going to have so many different outlets. That's why it's called a resource center. Mm-hmm. So many different outlets. We want to meet people in every area in their life, medical, physical, the mindset, spirituality, in every area, whatever that the young Black man need is, I want that need to be met when they come to that resource center.
A one-stop center.
Yes, that's
Okay,
all I
so
hear.
an umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
What's under?
What's under the umbrella?
Mm-hmm. Tell me about how some of the particular pieces of it work.
Well, right now, like what we're doing right now is what I'm doing to get things going, because we don't have a physical site yet. But right now, how things are working, I'm giving events. Once a month, I'm throwing these big events like I just did trauma. And it's all my events deal with the Black man and the young youth, Black youth. And so we just did an event on trauma. I did an event on the trauma of being wrongfully convicted. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of interviews, and when it comes to wrongful conviction, so I talk to a lot of young Black men about the trauma that they face. Can you imagine being 17 years old, coming out at 62, 45 years later? Wow. The trauma. I've talked to people that's been in there 30 years, 20 years. So I get these men together from all over. They'll come, we'll sit down, we'll talk, we'll have conversation, and I always have a therapist there, a person. And I gotta give a shout out to her, if y'all don't mind, Leah Chapman, who is a clinical therapist. She has her own company now called Intervene. Mm-hmm. I love her. She comes to all my events, and she is thorough, and men relate to her. And so she's there on site, and what this does is empower. I'm about empowering, but I'm about having real conversations.
Real talk.
What's the follow-up piece after you have an event?
Follow-up piece, like we have, I like to have literature there. I also like to have, if you need therapy, I'll refer you to Leah if anybody needs somebody to talk to. So I have different resources and different things that people can connect with. So I got connections where, you know, some people just want to come and just get revived, and some people got follow-up. So, hey, I need therapy. Here you go. Or I need some type of resource to help me to find therapy. Then we'll have that information for them.
There is such a need for this out in the community. How do you market your events?
Instagram, Facebook, word of mouth, and God knows I'm just, Lord, I'm one of those promoters. Mm-hmm. I get it out there. you know. And so I do it through Instagram, Facebook. When I was doing radio, I would do it on my radio shows. But mostly right now, how I get it out there, just the word of mouth, and then I go and support other people's events. And, you know, hey, this is going on, that's going on. I did an event back here a couple of years ago called The Black Man and His Emotions. And I end up, through that, getting the guy from Empire that played Terrence Williams.
Oh, wow.
You know, but he was the Terrence Williams lookalike. Okay? But so when you think you're looking at Terrence, you were looking at him. His name is William Smith. I brought him up here from Chicago. Over 100 black men came. It was so powerful, because I said, okay, the call to 100 black men. It was so powerful. It talked about the black men and his emotions and things like that. And it was powerful. So I like giving events that's going to empower, like our event. I just did an event 3 weeks ago. Resilience. Okay, resilience and trauma. The resilience of the young black man.
Nate, what a wonderful story that is. There's always hope.
Yes.
You know, and with people like you in the neighborhood, there's hope visible that you are changing lives, and I am so grateful for you.
Hey man, what's wrong with you? You almost killed him back there. Man, he tried to play me. What was I supposed to do? We wasn't raised like that, D. Man, look, I ain't you, and I ain't Pop neither. I won't respect now this man or whatever, whoever tried to take that from me.
You can't serve two masters, son. You either serve God or the devil. There is no in between.
If I can't get through my own brother, then how am I supposed to lead an entire congregation?
You can't control what other people do, Elijah.
That's all for our show today. Thank you so much, Nate. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Remember, in your life, whatever you're going through, that earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. We'll see you next week, and God bless.
If you would like to help support this broadcast or become a sponsor, visit realtalktoday.com. Remember to join our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We would love to hear your thoughts of our show, so we look forward to hearing from you. If you're in the Ypsilanti, Michigan area and would like to be a part of our show, visit realtalktoday.com to find out how. Until next time, keep it real.